Write your title here, in capital letters. Her true story from California. She let her daughter help until the bank froze everything. And I was folding laundry on a Tuesday morning when my daughter called. Just regular folding. Towels, my husband's golf shirts, a tablecloth my mother gave me 20 years ago that still had the stain from Thanksgiving 2004. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter and I saw her name. Amanda, my oldest, my only daughter. The one I held for 14 hours in a July heatwave because she did not want to come out. The one who used to braid my hair before school and tell me she would never leave me. I answered like I always did. Hey baby, what's going on? Her voice was different. Not cold exactly, just flat, like she was reading something from a piece of paper. She said, Mom, we need to talk about the house. I remembered stopping with the towel in my hands. It was the good blue towel from Bed Bath & Beyond. Soft, expensive, the kind you buy when you want to feel like you have your life together. I said, what about the house? She said, I've been helping you with the finances for 3 years now. You signed the papers, you gave me power of attorney. Remember when we went to that nice lawyer's office? You had on your pink cardigan. You said you trusted me completely. I remembered. Of course I remembered. That was the year after my husband's first stroke. Rich had always handled the money, the bills, the investments, the retirement accounts.
He was an engineer, precise, careful, boring in the best way. Then his left side went numb, and suddenly he could not remember the password for the electric company. He could not tell me which bank held our savings. He looked at me from his hospital bed with that half droop on his face and said, I'm sorry, honey. I should have written it all down. So Amanda stepped in. She was 42 then, married to a man named Scott who sold medical devices, 2 kids, a house in the same town because I begged her not to move far. She was my rock, my sensible girl, the one who got straight A's and never talked back and held my hand when my own mother died. She said, Mom, don't worry. I work from home now. I can handle the online banking. Just let me help. And I did. I signed everything she put in front of me because I trusted her, because she was my daughter, because the world tells you that your children are your legacy, that they will take care of you when you are old, that all those years of packing lunches and driving to soccer practice and staying up late when they had fevers will come back to you in the end. The towel fell out of my hands onto the floor. I said, Amanda, what do you mean we need to talk about the house? She said, the reverse mortgage went through last week. The bank will pay you a monthly stipend, but the house belongs to them now. When you pass away or move into a facility, it will be sold. That's just how it works. You remember signing for that too.
The notary came to your kitchen. You made him coffee. My hands started shaking. Not a little shake, the kind where you cannot hold a coffee cup, the kind where you have to sit down before your knees give out. I pulled out a chair at the kitchen table and sat down hard. The wood creaked. I said, Amanda, I never signed for a reverse mortgage. You told me those were refinance documents. You said you were getting me a lower interest rate. You sat right there at this table and you held my hand and you said, Mom, this will save you $800 a month. She did not say anything for a few seconds. Then she said, Mom, I did what was best for the family. The family. That word cut me in a place I did not know I had. The family. She meant her family. Her and Scott and the kids. Not me. Not Richard, who could barely walk to the bathroom without help. Not the woman who breastfed her through a cracked nipple and held her hair back when she threw up in 7th grade after drinking cheap vodka at a party. Not the grandmother who watched her children every single Tuesday for 5 years so she could have date night. I said, Amanda, you need to tell me right now what you did. Her voice changed again, softer now. The voice she used when she was a teenager trying to get out of trouble. The voice that worked on me every single time because I wanted to believe her. She said, Mom, I'm going to send you an email with all the documents. Just look them over. You'll see that this was the right choice. The monthly payment will help with Dad's care. And honestly, you don't need a 4-bedroom house anymore. It's too much for you. That was true. The house was too much. 3,000 square feet of bedrooms nobody used and a backyard pool that hadn't been cleaned since Richard got sick. But it was mine. It was ours. We bought it in 1989 for $160,000. Richard painted the nursery himself, the same nursery where Amanda took her first steps and her little brother Tommy learned to ride a bike. Every scratch on the hardwood floor had a memory. Every dent in the drywall had a story. That house was not a building. It was the container for our entire life. I said, "Amanda, if you did what I think you did, I will never forgive you." She said, "I love you, Mom. I'll send the email." Then she hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The laundry sat in the basket. The coffee I poured earlier went cold. Outside, a squirrel ran across the bird feeder, and I watched it without really seeing it. My brain was trying to catch up to my body. My body already knew. My body was cold. My stomach was tight. My chest felt like someone had placed a concrete block on it and walked away. I looked over at the living room, where Richard was asleep in his recliner. His mouth was open. His good hand rested on the remote. He had no idea. He had not known who I was for 3 days last winter. He had called me Mom once by accident. Then he cried because he realized he forgot my name. This was the man I married when I was 22 years old. He wore a brown suit, and his hair was longer than he wanted because the barber was closed on Sundays. We danced to a song I cannot remember now. We ate cake that was too sweet. We thought we had forever. Now forever looked like a recliner and a catheter, and a man who could not remember our anniversary. I picked up my phone and called my son Tommy. He lived in Oregon, far enough that he only came home for Christmas, and sometimes not even then. He was 38, single, worked for a tech company that gave him free snacks and stock options he never explained. We talked once a week, Sundays at 4. He always said, "Love you, Mom," at the end, but it had started to sound automatic, like something he said because he was supposed to. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" I said, "Tommy, your sister just told me she took a reverse mortgage on the house." Silence. Long silence. Then he said, "What do you mean she took a reverse mortgage?" I said exactly what I said. "She says she did it to help with your father's care, but I never signed anything. I never agreed to this. She said there were documents. A notary came to the house." Tommy said, "Mom, did you sign anything without reading it?" My throat closed up. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say, of course not. I am a smart woman. I raised 2 children. I worked as a dental hygienist for 25 years. I am not stupid. But that would have been a lie.
Because there were nights when Richard was in the hospital and Amanda showed up with a stack of papers and a pen, and she said, "Mom, just sign here. I already looked it over." And I signed. Because I was tired. Because I was scared. Because she was my daughter, and she would never hurt me. Tommy said, "Mom, I told you years ago to be careful with her. Remember when she asked to be put on your bank account? I told you not to do that." I remembered. I remembered being annoyed at him for being suspicious. I remembered thinking he was just jealous because Amanda was the one who helped. He lived in Oregon. He did not see the daily struggle. He did not drive me to Richard's physical therapy appointments. He did not hold my hand in the emergency room at 2 a.m. He was not there, so his opinion did not matter, except now it did. I said, "Tommy, I need you to come home." He said, "I can't, Mom. I have a product launch next week, but I can call a lawyer for you. There's a woman in my building who does elder law. She's good. She handles cases like this all the time. Let me call her and see if she can talk to you." I said, "Okay." He said, "Mom, I'm sorry." I said, "Me too." We hung up. I sat at the table for another hour. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up. Not because I was sick, because my body finally understood what my brain was trying to process. My daughter had stolen my house, not with a gun or a mask, with paperwork and love, and I'm just trying to help, Mom. She had sat at my kitchen table and held my hand and looked into my eyes and lied. For 3 years she had been lying. Every time she brought over dinner, every time she said, "I love you," every time she let her kids call me Grammy. It was all part of the same performance. The notary. I started thinking about the notary, a young man with a blue tie and a briefcase. He came to my house on a Wednesday. Amanda was there. She made him coffee. She said, "This is just a formality, Mom, just standard stuff for the refinance. Sign here and initial here." I signed. I initialed. He stamped something and left. I did not read a single word. I trusted her. That was the knife, the trust, the blind, stupid trust of a mother who loves her child more than she loves herself. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and emails, and the slow, horrible realization
that I had no legal ground to stand on. The lawyer Tommy found was named Deborah. She was 62. She had short gray hair and glasses on a chain, and the kind of voice that sounded like she had seen everything and nothing surprised her anymore. She asked me to send her every document I had, every email, every text, every piece of paper Amanda had ever put in front of me. I spent an entire afternoon going through the filing cabinet in Richard's office, the same cabinet where we used to keep our wedding photos and the kids' report cards and the deed to the house.
Now it was a mess of old bills and medical statements and papers I did not understand. I found the documents from the reverse mortgage, 12 pages, small print, legal language that was designed to confuse. And there on the last page was my signature, clear as day, right next to the notary stamp. I had signed my house away. Deborah called me on Friday afternoon. She said the reverse mortgage was legal. All the signatures were there. The notary confirmed that I seemed lucid and aware. Amanda had done everything correctly from a legal standpoint. There was no fraud. There was no forgery. There was just a mother who trusted her daughter, and a daughter who exploited that trust. I said, so what do I do now? Deborah said you can sue her for breach of fiduciary duty. She had power of attorney. She owed you a duty of loyalty and good faith. A jury might look very unfavorably on a daughter who convinced her elderly mother to sign away the family home without independent legal advice. But it will be expensive. It will take years, and it will destroy your relationship with your daughter forever. I laughed. I could not help it. It was a dry, hollow laugh that scared even me. I said, Deborah, what relationship? She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'll file the paperwork on Monday. That weekend, I did not leave my bedroom. I told the home health aide to take care of Richard. I pulled the covers over my head and I lay there like a dead woman. I did not eat. I did not drink. I just lay there and thought about every single moment of my life as a mother. I thought about the night Amanda was born, how I held her and cried because I could not believe something so perfect came out of my body, how I promised her right there in that hospital room that I would never let anyone hurt her, how I did not know that one day she would be the one holding the knife. I thought about her first day of kindergarten. She wore a yellow dress, and she did not cry when I left. She just waved and walked into the classroom like she owned the place. The teacher told me later that she was the most confident child she had ever seen. I was so proud, so proud. I thought about the time she broke her arm falling off the monkey bars in 4th grade. She did not cry until she saw my face. Then she sobbed because she was scared. I held her in the emergency room and told her everything would be okay. I told her I would always be there. I told her nothing could ever hurt her as long as I was alive. I thought about her wedding day. Scott was a good man then, or maybe he was always this man and I just did not see it. He looked at her like she was the sun. She looked at him like he was the moon. I gave a speech. I said, a daughter is a gift you spend your whole life unwrapping. Everyone cried. It was beautiful. I thought about the day she told me she was pregnant with my first grandchild. She came to my kitchen with a onesie wrapped in tissue paper. I opened it and screamed. We hugged for a full minute. She whispered in my ear, you're going to be the best grandma ever. And I believed her. Now I lay in my bed and I wondered if any of it was real. If the love was real. If the hugs were real. If the I love you, Mom was real. Or just a transaction. A way to keep me soft and trusting while she moved the pieces into place. The lawsuit took 18 months. 18 months of depositions and phone calls and emails that made my stomach hurt. 18 months of Amanda pretending I was the villain. She told our family that I was losing my mind, that Richard's illness had made me paranoid, that she was only trying to help and I was punishing her for it. She told her children that Grammy was sick, and that was why she could not come to birthday parties anymore. She told Scott's parents that I had always been difficult, and now I was impossible. I lost people. My sister Carol stopped calling. My cousin stopped inviting me to Thanksgiving. My neighbor of 20 years crossed the street when she saw me coming.
Amanda had gotten to them first. She had painted me as a bitter old woman who could not accept help, and they believed her because she was young and pretty, and she had 2 adorable children, and she cried on cue. The depositions were brutal. Amanda's lawyer asked me if I had ever been diagnosed with dementia. I said no. He asked if I had trouble remembering appointments. I said no more than anyone my age. He asked if I had ever forgotten to pay a bill. I said, Richard always handled the bills. He asked if that was why Amanda stepped in, because I was incapable of managing my own finances. I looked at Amanda across the room. She was wearing a gray pantsuit. Her hair was blown out. She looked professional and calm and sad, like she was the victim, like I was the one who had done something wrong. I said, Amanda stepped in because my husband had a stroke and I needed help. I did not ask her to steal my house. I asked her to pay my electric bill. The judge was an older woman named Hernandez. She looked at me. She looked at Amanda. She looked at the stack of documents on her desk. Then she said she needed time to review the evidence. I waited 6 weeks for her decision. During those 6 weeks, Richard got worse. He forgot how to swallow. He forgot how to smile. He looked at me one morning and asked who I was and why I was in his house. I told him I was his wife. He said, I don't have a wife. Then he turned his head toward the window and did not speak to me again for 3 days. I started sleeping in the guest room. I could not bear to be next to him when he did not know me. It was worse than death. Death would have been clean. Death would have been an ending. This was just a slow erasure. Day by day, the man I loved disappeared, and some stranger took his place. A stranger who was scared and confused and sometimes angry. A stranger who threw his food at the wall because he did not want to eat. A stranger who cried in the middle of the night because he did not know where he was. I called Tommy every night. He listened. He said, I'm sorry, Mom. He said, I wish I could be there. He said, let me send you money for a better caregiver. He was kind. He was distant, but he was kind. And I clung to that kindness like a life raft, because it was the only thing I had left. The decision came on a Tuesday. Deborah called me at 9 a.m. She said, we won. The judge ruled that Amanda had breached her fiduciary duty. She ordered her to reverse the reverse mortgage and pay my legal fees. She also removed Amanda as my power of attorney and appointed a professional fiduciary to handle my finances going forward. I sat down on the edge of my bed. I did not cry. I did not feel happy. I felt nothing. Just a hollow, empty nothing where my heart used to be. I said, thank you, Deborah. She said, you're welcome. She said, I'm sorry it had to come to this. I said, me too. Then I hung up and I looked at my phone, and I saw that Amanda had already texted me. Her message said, congratulations, Mom. I hope you're happy. You just destroyed our family. I read that text 10 times. I read it until the words blurred together. You just destroyed our family. She wrote that. She wrote that to me. The woman who wiped her bottom and taught her to read and paid for her wedding and watched her children so she could have a night off. I destroyed the family. Not her. Not the lies and the paperwork and the notary and the house. Me. I did not respond. I put the phone down and I went to the kitchen and I made a pot of coffee. I stood there watching it drip. The smell filled the kitchen the way it had for 35 years. The same kitchen where I taught Amanda how to make scrambled eggs. The same kitchen where she told me she got into college. The same kitchen where she said, Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. I poured a cup. I did not add sugar. I drank it black and bitter, and I let it burn my tongue because at least that pain was real. That pain made sense. The professional fiduciary was a woman named Patricia. She was 55. She wore sensible shoes and carried a binder everywhere. She sat down with me in my living room and went through every single account, every bill, every insurance policy, every penny I had. It took 3 afternoons. She was patient and thorough, and she never once made me feel stupid for trusting my daughter. When she was done, she looked at me and said, You're in better shape than I expected. The reverse mortgage was reversed. The house is yours again. Your Social Security and Richard's pension are steady. You have enough to live comfortably for another 15 to 20 years, as long as you're careful. I said, what about Richard's care? She said, we'll manage it, but I want you to consider a facility for him. The memory care unit at Golden Age is excellent. They have nurses 24 hours a day. He would be safer there, and you would be able to sleep at night. I knew she was right. I had known it for months, but hearing someone else say it made it real. Richard could not stay in the house anymore. He needed more help than I could give him. He needed people who knew what they were doing. He needed a place where he would not wander outside in his pajamas at 3 a.m. I made the call the next day. Moving Richard into memory care was the hardest thing I have ever done. Harder than childbirth, harder than my mother's funeral, harder than watching my daughter betray me. I packed a bag with his favorite sweaters and his wedding ring and a photo of us from 1985. I drove him to the facility and I walked him to his room. He looked around confused. He asked if this was a hotel. I said, yes, honey, it's a hotel. He asked where I was going. I said, I'll be right back. Then I kissed his forehead and I walked out to my car and I sat in the parking lot and I screamed. Not a loud scream, a quiet one, the kind where you open your mouth and nothing comes out because the pain is too big for sound. I sat there for an hour with my hands on the steering wheel and my forehead against the glass, and I screamed into my own chest until I had nothing left. I visited him every day. He rarely knew who I was. Sometimes he called me Mom. Sometimes he called me the nice lady. Sometimes he just stared at the wall and did not speak at all.
But I went anyway, because I made a promise 47 years ago, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I did not know then that the sickness would steal his mind before it stole his body. I did not know that the worse would last this long. Christmas came. Tommy flew in from Oregon. He brought a bottle of wine and a frozen lasagna and a new sweater for me. Blue. Soft. He said he picked it out himself. We sat in the living room and ate on paper plates because I did not have the energy to do dishes. The tree was small this year. A tabletop tree with lights that flickered because one bulb was loose. I did not care. I did not have the heart for ornaments. Tommy asked if I had heard from Amanda. I said no. He asked if I wanted to hear from her. I said I did not know. He said, Mom, she called me last week. She said she wants to see you. She said she made a mistake. She said she was scared about money and Scott was pressuring her, and she did not know how to say no. I put my fork down. I looked at my son, the boy who used to build forts in the backyard, the boy who cried when his goldfish died, the boy who became a man who lived 1,000 miles away, but still called every Sunday. I said, what do you think? He said, I think she's your daughter. I think you love her. I think you will always love her no matter what she does. But I also think you need to protect yourself. So if you see her, you do it on your terms, in a public place, with a witness, and you do not sign anything.
Not a birthday card, not a grocery list, nothing. I laughed. It was a small laugh, but it was real. I said, okay, Tommy, I'll think about it. I did think about it. I thought about it all through January and February. I thought about it while I watched the rain fall on the backyard pool. I thought about it while I scrubbed the kitchen floor for the 3rd time because I could not sit still. I thought about it while I sat beside Richard's bed and held his hand and wondered if somewhere inside that broken brain, he still remembered the woman he loved. Then, on a Sunday afternoon in March, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick it up. It was my granddaughter, Chloe. She was 12 years old. She had her mother's eyes and her father's smile, and she used to sit on my lap and let me read her stories until she fell asleep. She was crying. She said, Grammy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mommy said I couldn't call you, but I miss you. I miss you so much. My heart broke all over again. Not the old break, a new one, a fresh one, because I had been so focused on Amanda that I forgot about the children who did not choose any of this, the children who just wanted their grandmother to come to their soccer games and their school plays and their birthday parties. I said, Chloe, baby, it's okay. I miss you too.
I miss you every single day. She said, "Can I come see you? Please, Grammy? I'll ask Daddy to drive me."
Mommy doesn't have to know. I closed my eyes. I thought about Amanda. I thought about the house. I thought about the notary and the signatures and the 18 months of legal hell. I thought about the lies she told our family, the way she made me the villain, the way she took my trust and turned it into a weapon. Then I thought about Chloe, about her little hands holding mine, about the way she said Grammy like it was the best word in the world, about the summer we planted tomatoes together and she ate one right off the vine because she could not wait, about the Christmas pageant where she played the angel and she waved at me from the stage and I cried because I was so proud. I said, "Yes, baby, you can come see me. I'll make cookies, the ones with the M&Ms, your favorite." She said, "I love you, Grammy." I said, "I love you too, baby, more than you will ever know." We hung up. I sat in my kitchen with the phone in my hand and the rain tapping on the window, and I realized something that I had been trying not to face. The betrayal would never fully heal. There would always be a crack in my heart where my daughter used to live. But the crack was not empty. It was filled with the memory of who she used to be. The little girl in the yellow dress, the teenager who told me her secrets, the woman who stood beside me at her father's hospital bed and held my hand. That memory was real. The love was real. Even if it ended, even if she broke it, even if I could never trust her again.
The love was real. I got up and I washed the dishes and I swept the floor and I made the bed in the guest room because maybe one day Chloe would want to stay over. Maybe one day the phone would ring and it would be Amanda saying, "I'm sorry," and meaning it. Maybe one day I would sit at my kitchen table with my daughter and my granddaughter and we would laugh about something stupid and the world would feel whole again. Or maybe not. Maybe the silence would stretch into years. Maybe Amanda would never admit what she did. Maybe I would die in this house alone, with only the home health aide to find my body. Maybe Tommy would move me to Oregon and I would never see the pool or the kitchen or the stain on the tablecloth again. I do not know. I am 71 years old. I am tired. I am lonely. I am angry in a way that has no home. But I am still here. I am still standing in my kitchen on a rainy Sunday afternoon. I am still making cookies for a granddaughter who might or might not show up. I am still visiting a husband who does not know my name. I am still holding on to the small pieces of love that have not been stolen from me. The house is mine again. The bank did not win. Amanda did not win. But I did not win either. Winning would have been keeping my family whole. Winning would have been my daughter sitting across from me at this table without a lawyer between us. Winning would have been Richard remembering our first dance. This is not winning. This is surviving. And surviving at 71 is just waking up every morning and making the coffee and folding the laundry and waiting for the phone to ring, even when you know it probably won't. Even when you know the person you want to hear from has already said everything she needed to say. The cookies are in the oven now. The rain stopped. The sun is coming through the window and hitting the floor in that golden way it only does in the spring. I am sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, and I am looking at the door. Chloe said she would come at 4. It is 3:45 now. I am waiting. I have been waiting my whole life. I will probably wait a little longer.